So, if you are comfortable, then we'll begin. What day is it today? Wednesday talk. So, already talked many things about meditation. Yesterday I was talking a little bit about insight. What I never mention is one of those great little similes. If ever you have any difficulties in life or in meditation or with anything, with health, sometimes it's good to do what I used to call the simile of the pyramid in the jungle. Some of you know that story, that when I was it's only 17, I did my gap year early. It's after A-levels and before going to university, and still young. So, actually I'm still young now, sort of. And going to the United States and just getting bored there because it was just the same as other Western cultures. I always was fascinated, with more indigenous communities, and especially in the jungles, and the jungles of Central America. And so I went into the jungles. And when I went into the jungles, I was aiming for this pyramid complex in the middle of the Yucatan Peninsula, Tikal. And it was a Mayan civilization who disappeared. No one knew why. It was before the Spanish conquistadors came. They'd already gone by then, but no one knows why. They were obviously a very advanced civilization. They were credited being the first civilization which actually was recorded as understanding the number 0. So anyway, that was one of the things. So I decided to go on a little expedition to try and go to that place in the middle of the jungle, and it was not easy. There was no roads there. And the only place where you can go was actually just down to the coast, up the river on a fishing boat, down this big river between Belize and Guatemala. And I loved that experience because it was like being Tarzan. It was just, I think nowadays they call it Bear Grylls or something. Is that right? Yeah, okay, but anyway, it was like an adventure holiday. And you were young, and you were just stupid, so you weren't afraid. And so you went through these jungles, and there were people in dugout canoes, all naked, and just animals in the forest, and it took all day to get to the top of the river, and then to go on back of trucks. It took about 3 or 4 days to get to this complex of pyramids. And when you got there, there's no one there except one archaeologist. He wasn't concerned about me. You can see just how people who weren't very virtuous you could steal any artifact. There's no one to stop you, no security, no people at all. It was just jungles and just old ruins. And there was no tea shops or tourist shops. There was nothing, just this one guy and me. And so I was I just turned 18 by then. You were 18, fit, you saw the big pyramid. And what did you do? Climb it, yes. It's like it's a boy thing, okay? Just like, girl thing is go shopping. And I just can't understand that. Boys is to climb things, see what's at the top. Conquer them. I'm sure you've conquered many shopping malls in your life. But anyway, I decided to walk up the top. Now, I never knew why those were built. I never did any research. There's no tour guides, no books you can buy about what the whole thing meant. You just walked up the top. It was a long way up the top. And when it got to the top, it was really clear to me what those things were there for. And it was a start of a wonderful simile about meditation and insight. Because you have to do a little backstory first of all. It was about 3 or 4 days of travel to get to this place. Now you just go in some aircraft. 3 or 4 days to get there. And it was through jungle tracks, even the rivers. Those rainforests, real jungles, were so alive. If one tree fell down 10 others would take its place within a few days. And so what happened was the canopy just grew over even this big river, let alone the roads. So you were traveling through tunnels. And if you did look up, you can just see like the speckled sunlight just coming through the small spaces in the trees. And this was an important part of the story, because for 3 days I hadn't seen distance. All you'd actually seen is maybe a few feet in front of you. Looked up, or the canopy of the leaves above you. You never seen that far ahead until when you got up to the top of the pyramid. At the top there, it was above the tree line. They'd built them, you can see why they built them that high, so they were just above the top of the trees. So on the top there you could see forever, the infinity in all directions, without anything between you and the infinite. It was also just so cool. Because in jungle it's just so oppressive, so hot, because the air can't move. You go above the tree line and you get the wind start blowing. It was cool, see forever. And then of course you look down and you could see the forest. And you could just make out the tracks where you'd come that morning, and the rivers. And I always remember this idyllic little village in the middle of an island called Flores, in the middle of the Yucatan Peninsula. It's probably some huge place now. And that was where I spent that last night. It was not that far away, but it took forever to get there. And you could see it all. This was the days before Google Maps. Now, Google Maps, I don't know, maybe you've done Google Maps of Jhana Grove. Have a look about, where it's all sort of situated, and where the prison's up the road, and just where the forest stops, and just the monastery on the other side, and just the plains and the ocean to the west. You get some idea of where it all is. It sometimes helps to get your locations and get your bearings, know where things are. And that's what it was like on top of the pyramid. This was in 1969. As you see the whole locality, the forest, the jungle, all laid out before you like a Google Maps. And the point was that I started sitting down there just on the top, taking a break and just looking at the incredible space and cooling down in the breezes. I started to think what it would have been like to be someone who was born in that jungle, who lived all their life in that jungle, was raised up in that rainforest. And then some rite of passage, some priest would take the young man or the young girl up to the top of the pyramid for the first time. And how that would just totally blow your mind. First time you could actually see where you lived. And see all these little villages and places where your grandparents, your aunties and uncles lived, and just how they would go from village to village, and the rivers, and you could see it all laid out in front of you. It was like understanding just how life is all set out in front of you, what its meaning is. You don't just get the small little picture of today at Jhana Grove. It's a whole thing, and how you all fit into this amazing thing we call the human life. And even more than that, more lives. But also, as well as just imagine this young man, young woman taken up, could see all their villages and stuff. And then also, imagine how cooling it would be up on top of that pyramid, like air, free-flowing over the tops of the trees. No bugs, no insects, just free-flowing air. And then you just look, every direction, 360 degrees, this incredible space, emptiness, going to infinity it seemed, which didn't separate people, which like held it in its grasp, all over, embracing everything, space, emptiness, freedom. And I was imagining just what it must be like if I was born in that village. I'd only in that jungle. I'd only been in there for 4 days. I hadn't seen distances, and so that really shook me. I can see distances again now. So that became a lovely metaphor, a very meaningful metaphor, for what we do in meditation, in life. Sometimes in your health, in your business, in your family, in all the jungle, the intertwined, entangling sort of mesh of problems and difficulties and politics and people, just getting upset at you, people falling in love with you, and getting sick and getting rich and losing the money, and all these incredible entanglements we call our daily life. Imagine if you can find that pyramid, go up, 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 until you're free. Free of the problems of people getting sick and dying and losing their jobs and people just even getting suicidal or being in terrible accidents. You get outside of that. It gives you perspective. Many times that I would tell the simile. I've been telling this for years and years and years and years and years. And I always remember that at one conference, I was in Singapore, this, her name was Beeling, she was a head, occupational therapist, and she did a little presentation, and she really made me laugh, because it was a presentation of a psychologist over in Sydney who was marketing his new state-of-the-art, very effective method for solving the problems, in our modern world. And this young psychotherapist said, the problem of life is that you put your hand too far close in front of your eyes. And that's why you get obsessed with your problem, just what's in front of your eyes. And all you need to do is to put it out there where it belongs, at the end of the arm. And the lady had managed to download this, from the internet. She was looking at me, laughing her head off, because she knew, that everyone in the audience knew, that I did that simile about 15 years earlier. No sort of accreditation to where it came from. But it doesn't matter, it went round and round and round, but it was working. And this is actually part of that simile. If the hand is right in front of you, I can't see any of you. This Jhana grove, the beautiful lunch which is coming for you, just the whatever else is in front of you, you can't see anything. All you can see is your hands. Come all this way, to Perth and to Serpentine and to this wonderful little meditation retreat centre. You've got this in front. You can't see meditation. You can't see the retreat centre. You can't even see Australia. All you can see is your hand. That was a symbol for when you got too many big problems. All I can see. But putting it at the end of your arm. The lovely thing about this simile, it doesn't diminish the size of your hand. The problem is not gone away. It's not got any lesser or bigger. It is you've got perspective. Same size. I'll put it here or put it over there, the same size. But now I can see other things as well. That is also the simile of the pyramid. You go up the top, you can see the problems down there. That's where your mother-in-law lives, in that hut. That's where your boss is. That's where your bank manager is, trying to look for you to find out, pay off for your debts. So, you know where all those things are, but yeah, up, beyond, above, which means that you get perspective. And that is what insight is all about. Getting perspective of what the problems are. So that is the whole symbol sometimes. I mention this symbol of whenever you're meditating, sometimes you need just to stand back and have a look what's really going on. Then you find you can disengage. You don't need to get caught up. One example of that, there's actually two examples coming. The first example is, it does seem that because it's convenient, there's more flights, that if ever I go overseas, even to Hong Kong, please excuse me, but I usually go, via Singapore, because there I can, there's more flights from Perth, to Singapore, and then Singapore to Hong Kong. But because I'm always seem to be going there, if it's going to London or it's going to Thailand, but I always seem to be going through that airport, especially Terminal 3, that's the international one, which comes to Perth. And in the centre of Terminal 3 in Singapore Airport, there is this, I know it's a sports lounge, they call it. And so, I don't stop there, but I just walk past. And a few times they've been having a football match on, a soccer match. And a few times I've just paused and looked at these guys sitting down there, and sometimes they jump up out of their chair. And there's this huge screen there, and they jump out, and I see them shouting, "That was offside! That was not a goal! That was offside!" And they're shouting at the TV. Now, there's two things. I never actually had the nerve to go up and tell these gentlemen, "Sir, would you please consider these two things? Number one, it does not matter how loud you shout in Singapore, because the match is being played in Manchester, in England. You cannot shout that loud. They won't hear you. And number two, it's a replay." It's all over. But does that stop people? They're getting in there. And I also seen this. Now the girls come up for criticism. Not criticism, it's just nature. Because one of my experiences when I was at university, just this one time we went out, with our girlfriends to watch a movie. And the movie we chose to see, and that's maybe the girls decided they wanted to watch this, was West Side Story. Now, you probably have to be my age to know that sort of movie, but it was like Romeo and Juliet, but set in the east side and the Bronx, I think, of New York. And it was these two poor families. The boy, what's his name again? Maria and Tony. Tony must have been a Italian migrant. And Maria, she was Puerto Rican. Both migrants to the United States. Very poor. But, really good people trying to do the best to make a life, each for themselves. And they just happened to meet, and they fell in love. Tony and Maria fell in love. But families which did not get on. So it was ill started, two people from the other side of the tracks. And so after a long story, Tony and Maria, they obviously fell in love and they wanted to get a life together. But one thing, because you can't, Tony's brother was not going to let sort of a Puerto Rican girl marry into their family, and so one thing led to another, and in the end, I think Maria's brother got killed. And that's right, or someone got killed anyway, yeah. Maria's brother got killed, and his other brothers were going to look for Tony to shoot him to get revenge. And Maria was searching the dark streets at night on the east side, on the west side, sorry. Searching and searching and searching, trying to find her lover, Tony, to warn him. She was looking and looking, and eventually she saw Tony under a lamppost in the dark, wet, cold sort of New York night. And she shouted out to him, "Tony!" And as she shouted out, a shot rang. Her brother also found him and shot him. And she ran towards her lover, Tony. She held him in her arms as his life force started to ebb away. The shot was fatal. And she held him. And what did she do? Call for an ambulance? No. She started to sing. And somewhere, someplace, there was an orchestra in the middle of the night, poor part of New York, 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a place for us, somewhere, a place for us. As he died in her arms. And our girlfriends, they were sobbing. And sensitive guys like me were laughing. This dude was only a movie. He's not really dead. I told the girlfriends afterwards, they knew I was a Buddhist, and I said, listen, this proves it. Just wait for another half an hour and Tony will be reincarnated. You see him again. But, it wasn't just a joke. It wasn't just criticizing guys, but I often thought, what's the psychology of this? What actually are you doing? And later on we find out what's got to do with meditation. What it's doing, those men at Changi Airport, they got so sucked in to the action. They perceived, they were in this illusion, this fantasy, that they were in the stands of Old Trafford, Manchester United soccer stadium. They were right there as it was happening. Like they got sucked totally into the action. They were part of the audience. And that's why, even though if they'd have only realised that they weren't in Manchester but they were in Changi Airport, they only realised it's all over. But when you get in there, you're right involved. In that place, in that time, you really get sucked in. And that's why, that's not a goal, that's offside. He made a dive, it's not a penalty. Because they're right there, that's what it feels like. And if you're in a movie, watching a movie, it could be West Side Story, it could be, I don't know, whatever movie you like or you watch, you get sucked right into it. That's right, well that movie which I saw on a flight, Armageddon. It was the end of the world, again. And I didn't have any headphones. I was just sitting there watching it without any headphones. Laughing my head off. It's really funny. You should try that. Anytime you have a really, really dangerous, scary movie, take the headphones off and have a look. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's banal. It's infantile. You know what's going to happen next. The scene which I remember, I forget who the hero was, but apparently they landed, I think, a spacecraft on an asteroid or something, which was hurtling to Earth. Certain destruction, the end of the world was happening. And of course, you have to have Hollywood film stars. They're the only ones who can actually stop the end of the world. So I was actually asking the Thai people, and said, where was, had those Thai boys in the cave got stuck in the cave recently? Where was Batman and Spider-Man when you need them? Spider-Man would be great for that sort of job, because spiders are great inside caves. Nowhere to be seen. Anyway. Don't encourage me, Andy. Anyway, in this movie, apparently that's right, you saw, because they didn't hear anything, because they didn't have it. I was just watching it, just incredulous. It hit the asteroid about 300 kilometers a minute. It hit it really hard, and smash! And sparks and flames and explosions going everywhere. It was just like, the 4th of July for the United States, or Guy Fawkes night in England. It's like as big as like Iraq on a Saturday night during a blitz or something. It's just huge flames and bangs, and at least that's what it looked like anyway, because I couldn't hear it. And then it rolled down a cliff, and another set of bangs and crashes and stuff. And even for 10 seconds of that, any normal human being would be annihilated, would be fried, would be smashed to bits. No bone would be, left. It would be ground to powder and incinerated many times over. But then, when it came, there was a peaceful stop. There was a pause. And then I remember the view on the screen. There was some part, the inner part of the spacecraft. You saw a hand come into view. Someone pulled themselves up. He was a hero. He survived. Not only survived, his hair was perfectly coiffed. Come on. No scratches, no sweat, no charcoal anywhere on his face. And I burst out laughing. And the people that said to me said, "Be quiet, watching the movie." It was so funny because they were really into it. But when you actually stand back, you don't get drawn in so much. It's only a football match. It's only a sort of a movie. But if you can actually stand back, you find you can disengage from the problems and troubles of your life. Even the health problem, the pain, the disappointment, the past and the future and all its thoughts. You stand back and you look at these stupid thoughts. They are stupid because some monks can read your mind. They can know what you're thinking. I think you can understand they are stupid, much of your thoughts. But you don't need to worry about that. Because as I've mentioned before, if any monk or nun or man or woman gets some deep meditation, you can start to read thoughts. Now you maybe read one or two people's minds, but that's it, not again. It is like reading a trash novel. If it's something interesting, you might read it, but come on. Your minds aren't worth reading. It's true, isn't it? Come on. So anyway, but for you, that's really important. You're right inside the action. This is your life. And because we're right inside of it, we don't get perspective, we don't get the simile of the pyramid, we don't get outside of it. We get sucked in every time. It gets really complicated. There aren't many ways through the jungle. It is just tangled, our lives. You get some perspective, you get out and have a look. It's not such a big deal. And we know the way through. We can see it from Google Maps, the pyramid at the top. We can see our way through. It will pass. And little things like that, this too will pass. It isn't always, you'll be able to manage it. Just put it in perspective. It's only 2 bad bricks in a wall. Sort of, whether you try, you don't try, the things change anyway. You can just sit down and have a cup of tea, and after a little while, just, it's different again. So many things which you learn on top of a pyramid, which you can put back into your ordinary life. It means if you just want to watch a movie and get into it, you know what you're doing. It's only a movie. You can have a bit of fun, get scared, get emotional. Oh, that's so sad. Or whatever you want to do. At least you know what you're doing. And if it gets too much, you can always come back. I'm on a chair. I'm in the lounge room. I'm watching a movie. It's not real. I don't need to get too upset. It's only a football match. It's not, World Cup. It's not a World Cup. The cup is only this size. It's not as big as the world. The world is much bigger than the cup. That's just what we exaggerate. And when we believe that, we go, oh, it's just life and death. Because I remember that. It was when I was playing football and following football. It was a Liverpool manager, Bill Shankly, his name was. And this fellow, Bill Shankly, this was in 69 or 68, sometime about that time. And someone asked him, he said, some people think, this was years ago, it's got worse since, some people think that football, like soccer, is a matter of life and death. What do you think about that? And this manager said, they're wrong. I totally disagree. Football is not a matter of life and death. Football is much more important than life and death. And he was onto something there. Some stupid people. Anyway, this is where we stand back. And this is one of the points of meditation. Meditation, we just disengage for a little while. We go out of the jungle. So sometimes we trick you into getting out of the jungle. Just sit, watch your body, relax. Don't do anything. Just watch the body and relax it. Just feel how you can get comfortable. Then look at your peaceometer. What makes you peaceful? What makes you more agitated? And peace is a very beautiful thing to experience. It's nice to be peaceful. Just for a bit of a break, it feels good. Let alone the emotional and the physical benefits it gives. When you start to go slower, it actually changes. And I was going to introduce at this point, I'll go back to notice this is how we come out of the jungle, but also tells you something about what happens when we get out of the jungle. Because this was a simile of the road, the Kingsby Drive. Now, I think a lot of you came at night time, so you didn't actually see just the road going down, but I think was it tomorrow? No, tomorrow was it Friday? But some of you are going over to see our nuns' monastery and also to go to Dhamma for the Friday night talk. But anyway, you see the road, the hillside we go down, and those of you who've been here many times just know that Kingsby Drive down in the bottom, it snakes up the hillside, 2.2 kilometers, and you get to Bodhidharma Monastery. I've been living up there at this time for about 7 years, roughly around that time. Always really busy, and I was coming back from an appointment. I don't know exactly where it was. Come back early in the morning, no, not early in the morning, but about sort of 9 o'clock, 9:15. And it was a beautiful day, not hot, not cold, but sunny. And I thought, well, I've got time. I want to walk up this hill. And it's steep, but it's not that far. It's only a couple of kilometers, not that much. And so I asked, now, can you let me out the bottom of the road? We never drop a monk off. I know some people say, we'll drop you off at Bodhidharma Monastery. Or I go to Hong Kong and you pick me up from the airport, we'll drop you off at the train station or the hotel. It's not appropriate to drop monks, especially old monks, who if you drop them might get wounded. So please don't say, I will drop you off at the monastery, or we'll drop you off at the kitchen. You don't drop people off. You disembark them. Gently. So anyway, I asked him, please disembark me at the bottom of the road. And so he did, gently, so I survived. And then I walked up the hillside. A beautiful day, sunny, not hot, not cold. And as I was just enjoying, just walking at my leisure, I was looking at the hillside, and I'd never seen that before. Well, that's different. And as I looked, the more I looked at the hillside, that was, to the north of Kingsby Drive, there's a beautiful valley there. I started seeing things I'd never seen before. And in fact, I had to admit, that hillside looked totally different than what I remembered looking through the window of a car. And it was so different that I was have I got the right hillside? Is this the right place? Because it looked very different. And figuring out what's going on here, this is weird. I've been drugged or something happened. And then I stopped. And stared in incredulity at what I was seeing. And as I stopped and stared, it's changed again. I saw more detail. I saw so much that I'd missed looking through the window of a car. And it started, the longer I stood and just stared, the more beautiful it became. And the whole experience was one of these weird experiences. What is happening? How come up and down that road 2 or 3 times every week, and now it was like a totally different hillside? And then I started contemplating. The contemplating was exploring why. And of course, science background, the nature of the organ of sight, it became quite obvious. When you see something, that the light goes through the pupil of your eye onto the back, onto the retina, where it forms an image, and that creates a chemical reaction on the retina, and from that chemical reaction the electric pulses go along the optic nerve, and where you can start to understand and interpret, perceive, what you're actually, those electrical signals are meaning. But what was important for me was just the phase where the light hit the retina and the chemical reaction occurred. Because I remember at school when I was young, just developing your own photographs. It was a wonderful thing to see. You take the photograph and you put the developing paper, the photographic paper, in a solution, and then slowly you'd see the image emerge, from the photographic paper. It's old-fashioned stuff, but now maybe you can understand that it takes a while for the image to actually emerge, from the photographic paper. And it was a fascinating thing to see. Just it took a minute or two. If you took the paper out too soon, the image would not be fully formed. The colours would not have been established, and also you'd miss too much detail. And that was exactly what was happening when I was seeing. That's how your eye works. You see something, an image is formed on the back of your eye. What happens? Another image, another image, and another image. They go in sequence so fast in normal life that you never have an opportunity, enough time to see any one image in sufficient detail. It doesn't give time to develop. Which is one of the reasons why I never realized in life we're going so fast. So what we see, what we smell, what we feel, another image comes right behind so quickly that any image, any sense impression does not fully form. And especially with sight, colors are pastel, washed out. They're not rich, full and deep colors. Same as the detail, there's not enough differentiation, and of the different types of what you're seeing there. You're not seeing the detail. So what was happening, that was when I was normal life, symbolized by watching through the window of a car. Out the car, walking, going much slower, your eyes had more time for the images to fully form. And when I stopped and stared, stood still, the images, they just all started to open up and develop. Thousands of individual pieces of grass. And they were just all just really green. And more green than you've seen before. The browns, thousands of different shades of brown on the bark of the trees. It was all gorgeous. And in the valley there was the little stream, the river, just going over the rocks. You could see so much detail, and it was so delightful and fully coloured. I was just transformed in beauty and joy and happiness. It was hard to take myself away and just walk up the rest of the hill. But I got out of that a wonderful experience. When you slow down and stop, it is like you're coming out of the jungle. Things are beginning to form. You see more detail. You understand at last what's out there. And the most amazing and reassuring thing is what you see is more beautiful than you'd ever expect. Yeah, we have the law of suffering, but my goodness, the suffering is just at its weakest when you go slow and still. You start seeing some beautiful stuff out there. That was my simile of walking up the hillside, and of course it happens very often. When you start to slow down and don't move so fast and just stand back away from your thinking and thoughts so they don't obsess you, you're not sucked into them, you can actually stand back and you can cheer at the amazing goal, and you can just really appreciate the artistic acting of those amazing people who can, be as if they're in love, or if they're suffering, and if they're in pain. But you can stand back, you're not getting involved, you can stand back and appreciate, and you can also see the beauty. When you go slow, you can see much more. And it's quite delightful. So this is where we have these opportunities, and it does happen here. I mentioned already, as you slow down more, you see more, it becomes more delightful, and also you start to become happy. The natural happiness of a meditator. The natural happiness of a meditator, even in the sutras, I don't know if we get to it, but it's called the Dhamma Sutta, the monuments to the Dhamma. And that was where the King Pasenadi, one of the great supporters of the Buddha, who lived at Savatthi, and that was just close to the famous Jeta Grove Monastery in Atapindika's park, where the Buddha spent about 25 years of his life. 25 range retreat was in that monastery. And so the king, after work, went to visit the Buddha. And when he went to visit the Buddha, it was, if you're a king, it's hard being able just to relate to a person, because you're the king and other people are going to bow to you and respect you. But the Buddha was almost like a friend. Not sort of a subject, a disciple, yeah. But also more than that, was just a really good friend, because how can a king find a friend? So anyway, that he went to see the Buddha, and then what happened next year? The Buddha led him into his hut, and the king started kissing the Buddha's feet. And what are you doing that for? And the king was just saying to us how he not just respected, how he really loved the Buddha. It was like a father, an uncle, a mentor, an inspiration in the difficulties of ruling a kingdom and having to do some really nasty things sometimes. But here's the Buddha, and he was just, it's just so wonderful to have this right next door. And then the Buddha said, oh yeah, it's very nice. And he also said, the king said, he loved even just walking into the monastery, even if he didn't see the Buddha. So why? Why do you like coming to this monastery, even if I'm not in? He said, because in this monastery, all the monks are happy and smiling. And that was one of the quotes which I mention a lot. Because you go to some temples, some monasteries, and the monks or the nuns are miserable. Sit up straight. Sit up straight. Don't disturb me. I'm meditating, okay? And, don't look like that. You're disturbing my meditation. And even I was told you're not supposed to smile when you're a monk. Who was that lovely nun over in Wang Fat Chi temple? When I went there the first time, remember, I think Daniel, you took me there where I stayed. And she was staying there. And after I gave my talks, I think the first time I went to Hong Kong, gave a little bit of a retreat there. And she came up after me smiling and said, "Thank you so much, Ajahn Brahm." I said, "What have I done?" He said, "You've given me permission to smile and to laugh." He said, because whenever I would try and smile or laugh, all the people would sort of criticize me. "You're not supposed to, you're a nun. Serious. Don't laugh, don't smile." And here comes this Kwai Lo monk, smiling and laughing, laughing and smiling. And then, obviously, they respected me, and so he said, "Oh, we can smile too." So I said, "Thank you, Ajahn Brahm, for giving nuns and monks over there, especially nuns, permission to be happy, to look happy." I always remember that. So, of course you're happy, but sometimes they hide it. In front of the people, they're very strict. Ami tofu, ami tofu. But afterwards, they're playing around, laughing with one another as human beings. So anyway, it was wonderful to do that. But it was in the sutras. In the time of the Buddha, the monks and nuns were happy and smiley. That's why they were popular. And it wasn't just light-heartedness for light-heartedness' sake. This was where the Buddha gave this great little statement. "Yes, great king, that's what you can expect to see when those monks are practicing meditation properly and getting insights." Smiley. Smiley monks. Smiley nuns. This is what happens when you start going slower, seeing more deeper, climbing outside of the pyramid. Oh, so peaceful. Oh, I can see it's all there. You're away from the football match. Oh, it's just magic. They kick the ball this way today. It goes back the other way tomorrow. The ball is round. One day Indonesia wins the World Cup, then Hong Kong. You may have to wait a while. Who knows one day? It just happens. But you see it. So you don't get caught up, but you can see it, and you can be nice and peaceful and smiley. And it looks much more beautiful when you're just standing out and waiting for all of the colours to fall. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will happen to every one of you. Sooner or later, you'll be meditating. Sometimes not even meditating. Sometimes just having a cup of tea, coffee or whatever. Just out there, just on the veranda, just looking. And the architect, I was arguing with him. In the end, I won. But he wanted all this really weird stuff. In front of the kitchen, he wanted to have a water feature. Like, a little pond with fishes in. Come on, why do I say it's natural? I said, look over there. There's trees, there's water, there's everything. You don't need to put something artificial. Just have a chair so you can open your eyes. You can see the nature. It's all around you. Why do you have to put one in here? It's like building an aquarium, next to the ocean. So anyway, there, you sit there on the afternoon or sometime, whatever, in the morning, whatever, sometimes in the middle of the night, you sit there and just watch the stars twinkle. Or you can just see in the horizon. That's where it's very good feng shui, that place. You can see just over to the water, over to the Indian Ocean. And it starts looking pretty and delightful. But you just sit there and just wait. It gets more and more delightful. The colours start to sort of deepen at the sky. It's a shame you haven't had many clear nights yet. It's a bit cold at night. But at those times of the year, sometimes during the summertime, over here, I know sometimes after the meditation in the evening or the Q&A, you see people just on those stupas, because the stone picks up the heat during the day. It gets nice and warm, and they just lie out 10 o'clock at night, really nice and warm, just looking up at the incredible heavens. We've got a few photographs of those in those little books. Absolutely amazing. You're just watching there. Because you're peaceful and you're not thinking very much, those stars, they just get amplified. That's the only word I can say. Because the stars, the light is really powerful. Just watching them, enjoying every moment of it, and it's amazingly beautiful. This is what happens when you stop searching for happiness. You stop running around looking for contentment, looking for the next goal, the next thing to achieve, the next thing to do. You stop. It's like climbing the pyramid. See all the beauty there. So happy. You don't have to charge anything for it. It's totally safe. You're not going to get pregnant for looking at the stars. So, no worries at all. You're not going to get sick. Not illegal. Doesn't get taxed. How many stars did you look at today? 10 cents a star. It becomes just so peaceful. This is actually where you have the opportunity. See beauty where you least expected it. It's nothing to do with what's out here. How much peace you have inside. That's what we call, mindfulness is very important these days, but scratching the surface. Powerful mindfulness. Because you're walking slowly. What you see is 10, 20 times what you saw before. The detail is far easier to spot. Everything starts to be like it's all been polished just for you. Beauty, peace, happiness. And then you look, you're going to go back into the jungle again, into the mess. You've got to go back to work next week, back to your family, back to your financial problems, back to your other problems, all the stuff which we have to deal with in life. When you've got perspective, when you can take a bit of time out, it really does help. You don't get so consumed into this temporary, transient ups and downs of our daily life. You get the bigger picture. You see it does pass. And you do survive. And it's unpleasant when you're there. But it's worth it when you're out the other end. Painful, but you learnt a lot. I always remember the school teachers I had, the ones I was most scared of, the ones which hurt the most, they were the ones I learnt the most from. Growing pains. This is just how we learn. So little by little, you meditate. How to meditate, just don't do anything. Okay, you can watch your peaceometer. How peaceful are you right now? What makes you more peaceful? What makes you less peaceful? Then you watch your breath coming in, breath going out. And it soon becomes so wonderful, so lovely. Just give it time. Be patient. Patience in the moment, just being here. All of this comes. See the beauty, you can't run up the hillside. Walk slowly, then you stop. Every part of that hillside, there's no one place. Actually, there is one place, the most beautiful part of the hillside. You can actually explore that if you wish, the most beautiful part of this Jhana Grove Retreat Center. I don't know if you found it yet. The most beautiful part of Jhana Grove? Called right here. Right now. Some years ago, one of the monks, he because of somebody who passed away, they planted a Bodhi tree and a Buddha statue, and they called it the Secret Garden. Have you found the Secret Garden yet? Yeah. You found it? I'll tell you where it is. Right here. This is the Secret Garden. This is where they planted a Bodhi tree, the wisdom tree in here. This is where the Buddha statue is, inside of you. That's the real secret garden. The other one over there The secret garden which you might find on the other side of the lake, that's only the decoy. The real secret garden, right here, right now, in your old crazy mind, in your decrepit, falling apart body. That's where the secret garden is. So see if you can find the secret garden. Open the doors of your heart right now. Go inside. Secret garden, where the Buddha tree is always verdant, beautiful, cooling, and right. Da da da. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. And if that doesn't work, you can always watch a movie. No, don't do that.